Um, I was, I checked the news this morning, and it turns out that the IDF, Israeli Defense Force, bombed the building that housed all the press offices in Gaza. And they would only do that, Israel would only do that if they didn't want people to know what's happening inside Gaza. They're trying to stop the press from reporting. That's what totalitarian regimes do. That's what anti-democratic regimes do. So what I'm saying is that okay, let's combine that thought. Oh, you can even see from here. Look at that. It's awesome. Let's combine that thought with another fact that the person leading Israel is a man named Benjamin Netanyahu. This guy is super corrupt. But no matter what, he doesn't leave power. So even though he's a corrupt guy, he never leaves power. That, you know who else is corrupt and doesn't leave power? Vladimir Putin. So I'm thinking that if I were to, like, the state of Israel is either too weak to enforce its rule of law, or it is not a nation that is bound by rule of law. If it's not a nation bound by rule of law, it can't be a democracy. And if it's not a democracy, then it doesn't necessarily respect human rights, and is not necessarily on board with the American project. The American project is multiracial democracy. And if you're not a democracy and you're not down with multiracial cohabitation, then you're not an ally of the United States. You're not an ally of America, of the whole continent, right? This whole side of the world is about this project. Everyone's doing their own flavor of it, but that's the idea that we're doing. So you're either on board or you're not. And the way I see the behavior coming out, I mean, I am not going to whitewash and deny my own country's crimes, right? The United States was born from slavery and genocide. I recognize that, and I am trying to take steps to correct that, to fix that. The actions, and the way I do that is I promote multiracial democracy. The actions undertaken in the name of Israel does not promote multiracial democracy. In fact, it promotes fascism. It promotes ethno-nationalism, which is the opposite of multiracial democracy. You get what I'm saying here? So if Israel is the democratic state that existed in the Middle East, that state no longer exists. And what exists there now is an ethno-nationalist fascist regime bent on ethnic cleansing. Israel ended yesterday. There was no democracy. It's gone. And so when we understand that democracy is no longer a part of that group of people, then their actions make a lot more sense. And then our own responsibility starts coming into focus. Because the United States is funding funds Israel. The United States gives money to this anti-democratic state in the Middle East so they can enact ethnic cleansing. Our own nation is guilty of this sin. How dare we give money to have someone else do the thing that we did, to commit our very same crime? My own city where I live, This is the responsibility that my city bears. $1.2 million of my taxes go to help ethnic cleansing, to commit the atrocity that my nation is already guilty of. We have to reframe the way we think about this. Got a bunch of ethno-nationalists squatting in Palestine. Because what was there before all this mess happened? The Palestine. Either a bunch of Nazis showed up, a bunch of ethno-nationalist Nazis show up and start shooting up people and start shooting out talk about ethnic purity and drive everyone away. Let's talk about beginnings. I mean, people were cool, were fine before the ethno-nationalists showed up and started shooting everyone. People were cool in Palestine until people from Europe showed up, some radicals from Europe showed up and started shooting up people. That's what happened. Let's talk about the birth of Israel. Now, I'm not an expert. Someone can come along. I'm sure there's a billion people are going to come after me and say, about stuff. But from my perspective, from way back here, not invested in other than paying $1.2 million to ethnically cleanse the area to make it pure for another ethnic group. Like, I'm already dealing with the fallout of that in my own nation. A bunch of ethno-nationalists are trying to overthrow my government. Right now. Why do you think I would be supportive of another ethno-nationalist nation committing genocide? I'm already dealing with that nonsense in my own country. Yeah, people got to understand the Republican Party is an insurrection party. They're the Confederates. Confederates are back. Confederate Nazis, call them whatever you want, right? They're the same thing. And that's what you have to understand, right? When I get back to I want to come back to the ideals, Plato's Platonic forms, the ideals. The ideals. Fascism is an ideal. You can't kill it. It exists on another plane of existence, right? You can't get there. You can't get there. You can't kill it. You can't do it. Fascism comes into our world through humans. And it looks different depending on which culture the human belongs to. So that it's always fascism, but it looks different depending on which part of the world it shows up. When it showed up in Germany, fascism looked like Nazis. When it showed up in Japan, fascism looked like a cult of personality centered on the emperor and saying that Japanese were the superior. When it happened in Italy, it was fascisma. When it happened in the United States, it was white supremacy. Right? And what is happening in Israel is called Zionism. But it's all fascism. It's all fascism. It's the same thing. It looks different depending on the culture, but it's the same thing.